Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Outdoor Hospitality Weekly. I'm Alex Burkett, joined as always by my partner Matt Whittemore, and today we've got another great interview episode. We're talking with Travis Chambers, founder and chief design officer at ChamberStays and Outpost X. Travis, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You've got one of the, I would almost say, best concepts anywhere in the country. Why don't you just tell us a little bit before we dive into that, just who you are and what you do?
So, my name is Travis Chambers, and I own Outpost X, and we build cinematic experiences into kind of a hotel mic resort type asset. And so it's immersive. There's a story that's involved. You're a character while you're there. It's almost like a blend between being at a theme park and being at like an amenity loaded Airbnb. So we have all these different core strategies and a thesis about what we're doing. But our first project has proven a lot of these theories that we have, and we're just continuing to kind of carve out our little niche within the unique stays space.
Super cool. Experiential hospitality is obviously like a hot topic, something we discuss with our team internally a lot. And honestly, we don't love the term. I feel like it in some ways it's kind of meaningless. Like all hospitality is experiential to some degree. A Motel 6 has a guest experience, a Four Seasons has a guest experience. But then I look at what you do and I'm like, okay, this is experiential hospitality. This is without question a well thought out, curated, special, unique experience. So I'd love to hear from you. What does experiential hospitality mean to you?
Yeah, I struggle with the term as well, but I don't have a better name for it either. And I started this back in 2021. And honestly, I've really racked my brain as well to figure out what to call this thing. And I really still don't know, to be honest. Don't know. Like our original LLC is Exotic B&Bs. That was
Nice.
literally me attempting to figure out what to call this thing. And then I went to trademark it, and B&B said, Airbnb said, no way. I got a letter from their lawyer saying, hey, we, excited about what you're doing, but don't call it that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
so yeah. So I don't know, like Ben Wolf is the unique stays guy. And then you got a lot of guys that are, experiential hospitality, like, is it Zach Bucharest or whatever his name is? Um, so I don't know, but I do know that our teeny little niche that we're carving out, I think we have really figured out a name that explains what we're doing. Like Outpost X, I think it kind of it's slightly descriptive in a way, but it also just the feel of the word. It makes you feel outpost. Okay, so it's like way out there, and it's like Safari or Zanzibar or something like that. And then there's X. It's like, what does that mean? I don't know. But I do know though, when I was at Disney World, there's a billion things called Outpost. Um,
Yeah,
so there's
I
something to
love it.
that word, I think.
Love it. When did you open Outpost X, the first location?
11 months ago.
Okay, wow. And how's it been going since you opened?
It's been great. So we're about 90% occupancy. We're sold out, usually about 67% sold out, 6 to 7 months in advance.
Wow.
It's the property management piece has been a huge learning curve to figure out. I feel like we had just started to get to a decent place with our actual customer experience this last 3, 4 months. So it's been very challenging to figure out, but at the last 3 or 4 months, I have really just started to feel this new level of confidence that we're figuring things out. Um, so it's been great. It's been really great.
Amazing. And I want to know what was the inspiration for the concept? Are you just a huge Star Wars guy, or what's the story there?
So it's funny. I'm not a huge Star Wars guy. But I love sci-fi in general.
Hmm.
So I love Dune. I love Mad Max. I love
Nice.
the Book of Eli. There's just something about the desert aesthetic that I just really like this barren wasteland kind of feel. And I think it's because it gives you a sense of a story. And it's a very strong aesthetic. And part of the reason too is because I knew that I could build something that um, so the reason I like the Star Wars aesthetic, which we have no affiliation with of any kind, but the reason I like it is because they built a futuristic world in which everything is kind of beat up and antiquated. And while I'm not like the biggest Star Wars fan, I'm a rabid fan of Star Wars world building and the sets that they build because it's just so earthy and raw and broken and rugged. And I'm a little less so into like the post-apocalyptic aesthetic, like Mad Max with like metal everywhere, and that's so it's that. And then there's also this very deep Middle Eastern influence. And it's funny because when I went to the Middle East, I started realizing where George Lucas got all of his ideas from. Star Wars Tatooine is a 100% ripoff of the Middle East and Tunisia. In a lot of cases, 100%. I mean, the language of the Star Wars universe is Arabish. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
But to people in the United States, the Middle East was pretty much the most alien culture that you could possibly enter into. And it's funny too, because Walt Disney himself took all of these old stories, all of these old fairy tales that were more than 100 years old, and there was no copyright on any of these stories. Cinderella, they're free use to everybody. And so
Yeah.
same thing, right? He took these stories, and Walt Disney was their European culture. And so in the 20s, Americans just ate that up. So anyways, that's a big influence. The Bedouin culture, especially, and the Moroccan kind of aesthetic. And there's a hotel in particular called the Al Maha Resort outside of Dubai. And that is where we went to celebrate selling our company. It was the first time we'd ever spent more than $500 a night on a hotel. And we rented an old Rolls Royce, like a 20-year-old Rolls Royce. And we went out in the desert, and it was the most romantic, setup. There was gazelles. I was running out on my underwear with these gazelles and these dunes. And so it was a combination of those influences, I think, that created Outpost X.
Amazing.
Travis, walk through a little bit about kind of the building and construction side of this. You just talked through sort of the tour and the experience you went on to pull all these elements together, but it's not like you could go, like Matt and I sometimes do in the campground space, where you have a catalog of options and you're just looking at, what type of lodging unit do I want to put into this space and what fits. How was that like, kind of starting from the piece of property itself and then building everything on top of that?
Yeah, so Outpost X as a hotel was built more like a startup than a piece of real estate. So we started with this idea, and that idea evolved to the next, to the next, to the next. And by the time it was done, we had basically built everything twice. We had engineered everything twice. We went through 3 engineers. We went through 3 designers, 3. Yeah. The joke is that everything was built twice. In the budget, it was also twice of what it was supposed to be. So a lot of that is because of my lack of experience, and also my kind of this constant iterating off of what we're doing, right? So you build one thing and then you're like, oh, it would be really cool if it had this kind of influence. And then, so all these things kind of trigger all these other ideas. And because I built it with my own cash, I kind of had the luxury of doing all these experiments. Now, it was painfully expensive, but I'm really happy I did it that way, because I got to basically pull the levers in every category of creative, from interior design to music to clothing and fashion to experiential and interactive. And so it was like basically my giant art canvas for me to just try everything. And so there's probably $1.5 million of stuff we built there that really has no utility, no ROI whatsoever. But the other half of the $1.5 million stuff we built is what's making it famous. And so I think that the way we did it, treating it like a startup, enabled us to find out what levers people actually care about. And it's come to a conclusion now of what our company actually is and what Outpost X is. And it's basically boiled down to three things. These are like the core tenets or the core strategies of what Outpost X is. So number one is it's an immersive film set. So it's a movie and it's a story. Number two is topography. So it's an extremely surreal, unique landscape. And then three is a viral amenity. And the viral amenity at Outpost X is the sand cruisers. It's these art cars that you can drive around. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be art cars at every project. It just means there's going to be viral amenities. So and one example is we're about to do a Moroccan themed tent project out in Moab. The viral feature is going to be camels, right?
Love that.
Amazing.
So I think it's honestly like the viral feature. It's almost less rooted in design, which is usually the lever people pull, and I think it's a little more rooted in like a theme park type thing. It's like, what's the ride? What's the experience? What's the adventure? You know what I mean? If I go to an Indiana Jones hotel, I want to be I want to go on some crazy thing. So along that front, in our Puerto Rico project, which is 60% complete, the top of the project is Indiana Jones, 1600s, 1700s, colonial jungle trading post. And as you go down the jungle into the waterfalls, it turns into Avatar and Pandora. The forest glows, there's lightning bugs. We have figured out how to increase the population of lightning bugs at night.
Amazing.
But we have a 1993 Humvee that we have set decorated into an Indiana Jones rig. So you're actually going to drive backwards down this steep hill with a tow cable to your unit. Wow. And that's going to be the ride. So anyways, those are kind of our three core tenets. You know, those are the three things that have really hit for us that we're just going to replicate now over and over again.
Amazing.
You're definitely speaking my language. That's like my top movie series is Indiana Jones. So like you've added this to the bucket list, Travis. I'm making my way down.
Yeah.
Add me first on the list when this thing gets completed. So I will be the first one to take that journey. Yeah. Then you kind of led into what I was going to ask next of, Outpost X sounds like, and, you've started talking about the project in Puerto Rico. This is bigger than just the one location that you guys have started with. Talk about sort of the expansion and growth of the brand and what the future plans look like.
Yes. So all these projects will have a cohesive story. So right now there's a 45-minute long movie with characters and dialogue on a podcast that you listen to on the way to Outpost X. The story is very tightly connected to our project in Puerto Rico, which is on the planet of Fuqua. And there are two brothers that are separated at birth, and one is at this Utah place, the other one is at this Puerto Rico place, and they meet over there in Puerto Rico, and while they're there, the Utah project, that planet, it's destroyed. They come back to rebuild it. So every project is going to basically be a different town or a different planet in this solar system that we have. And so we're really engaged in the art of world building. Like as we grow our team, every employee will have the term world builder in their title. So that's going to be the core of everything that we do. Now, people are not that into it yet. Like, I think the podcast listening rate is like 30 or 40%. Some people love it. Most people don't really care about it that much. It's hard to get people into a new story, but that's like the greater play, right? The greater play is that we'll eventually roll out some gaming element to this where you can play a game in which you're immersed into Outpost X. And I'm in conversations with all sorts of, these different game developers right now with that. So eventually it's going to lead into IP. That's the pie in the sky down the future thing. But for now, the immediate ROI on that world building concept is that you can go to the different Outpost X worlds, right? And it starts to become a thing where you want to experience these different things that have this little curated experience that you're ready for, that you're expecting.
Incredible. Do you have a date that you're expecting to open the Puerto Rico location?
Yeah, so Puerto Rico is going to be open by the end of summer, and then we've got the Moroccan tent project in Moab is also going to be open by the end of summer.
Wow, busy man.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is about 4 months ago, I was in this place where I'm like, how do we get an investor? How do you find an investor? Like, how do people do this? I've never raised money for anything before, And step forward today, now it's like we've got 50 accredited investors sourced from like 300 or 400 leads that have come in. And these people are following up. We haven't had a call with them. We haven't and a lot of them are following up. So the word has gotten out. And I'm not 100% sure exactly how that's happened. I started putting out some numbers about a month ago, and that's when this influx. So we now have this thing where we've got as much money available as we could ever want. The thing is, we really don't need that much. And so now it's more of like, let's take the smallest amount of money possible from the most strategic, ideally the strategic one person. Like, we want a financial partner who is the top dog, that is 100% in our heads, in our world of what we're doing. And so far I've found I don't particularly enjoy traditional real estate and finance people. I really enjoy founders and entrepreneurs and tech as well. There's a big influx of people in tech wanting to move their money into physical things because of the AI thing that's happening. So we're finding our people, and we've been open 11 months now. And I think there's this element of like, this happened when I started my last company too. Everyone's kind of holding their breath of like, is this thing going to be a train wreck that goes up in flames? And then, I think it's like a year goes by and it keeps building, and people are like, okay, it's working. I better get involved in this thing because now it's working. So
Right.
We've had a lot of people laugh us out of rooms that are calling us back now. And so It's great. It's really great.
That's incredible. And it's kind of a cliche, but it's so true, is like, just do cool stuff, do awesome, interesting, unique stuff, and then the money will find it. Like I said, it's a little bit of a cliche, but it's also very true. You noted. Go ahead.
Me and my partner Josh, we've been laughing about that because the last few weeks we're like, isn't it crazy how when you do stuff happens? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the secret is just do stuff. Just do stuff, and then stuff happens.
So you made an interesting comment, and we love following you on LinkedIn because you post awesome stuff on LinkedIn, and you recently posted about your business being AI proof. And this is something that Alex and I talk maybe in a little broader way about. For us, the camping business, like, part of our thesis is that the world is so digital, the world is so plugged in, and we love the camping business because we love the camping business, but that's the way people unplug. And every day that passes and the world becomes more and more digital and automated, and with AI, that ability to unplug becomes more rare and valuable. And so you wrote this post that Alex and I both read, and we're like, this is exactly what we're talking about. We love this. So tell us and share with the listeners kind of what was behind that post about your business being AI proof.
Yeah. Matt, I'm with you. I love camping too. I love camping asset. I love glamping asset. Uh, Gosh, we'll talk more about that. But here's my theory. This is my recent theory. Okay, I call it total mobility. Okay, so never before in recorded history has 10 to 20% of our species had the prosperity to be anywhere, anytime, for any reason. So my theory is that the biggest economic shift that has ever happened is about to occur, in which people have total mobility, which means what it means to be human is about to change more than it ever has, more than it even has with technology. So now you can be anywhere within a day in the world for a low cost, and you could be somewhere else in the world a day later. We have become a wayfaring species on this planet, and it's just getting started. And if you just look at the wealth trajectory from capitalism in the last 100 years, right? This used to be 10% of people are living a wealthier lifestyle than any king in history, right? And I think that number is going to go from like 10% to like 50% in like the next 20 years. And so where we live and where we spend our time, where we spend our money, it's all going to change. And then if AI really takes over a majority of labor, what we engage in and what we spend our money on is going to change too. And so I think the gaming industry, video game industry, is like a really good example of this. Like, there's actually no intrinsic or commodity value in the video game industry. It is purely entertainment. But enough people have become wealthy enough and have enough time that there's enough people that want to spend money on it, and there's enough people that want to build it. And so this monstrous economy now exists. And I think that what total mobility is, this is a crazy theory, guys. It's a wild out there theory. My theory is that what total mobility is going to do is it's going to take human beings from being mostly motivated by survival to mostly motivated by slowing down time. And so research shows that you've generally lived half your life by about 21 years old, because you've had a majority of the experiences you're going to have, because life is monotonous. And as you become older, you have less experiences. So if you're a coal miner in West Virginia in 1850, you're going to die as a coal miner in West Virginia, and you're going to experience one life and one lifetime. And time is going to move very quickly by the time you're 20 years old. When you have total mobility, now you can slow down time because you can stack experiences, which means you can live multiple lifetimes within one life. And what that does is it doubles or triples the time that you perceive. What it also means is, as you gain more experiences, you can grow your consciousness much faster. You can acquire wisdom and understanding much faster. And so my theory of total mobility is that we're going from a survival-driven species to a consciousness chasing species. So anyways, that's why I think experiential hospitality is so much bigger than any of us actually realize.
I love it. I'm sold.
And Travis, I love that, as you've gone through this process, you talk about the thesis, you talk about, the content and sort of this building in public model, as you with a media and marketing background have captured the photos and the experience really well visually. Can you just talk about how that previous background a little bit from your media company has translated over to this thesis and vision for what you're up to now?
Yeah. So my thesis was, if I take the background in building film sets into building places you can stay, what I noticed with commercials is film sets and the world building side of what we did would majorly boost the conversion rate of the ads. So I see someone on a white background versus I see someone in Egypt, or I see someone in some type of futuristic cyberpunk environment. I'm just paying more attention to it. It's more interesting and exciting. And there's just this whole visual story that's happening that captures my attention. I really think if I had to pick the one thing that is making Outpost work, it's that. And it's interesting too, because we really have failed at a majority of things you're supposed to do with a hotel. So the three things that hotels are usually based on is luxury, service, and location. We are not luxury. We're rugged. It's poor build quality. Temperatures are highly variable. We have issues with mice. It is a constant battle at Outpost. And in some ways, it's a very uncomfortable place to be. It's extremely windy. It's cold in the winter. 2, we are in the middle of nowhere. We're in the worst location you could possibly imagine. Now, we are an hour and a half from, or an hour and 45 minutes from Zion, which gets 6 million visitors a year. And when you're at Zion, you're planning on a week-long road trip. So in a way, we're still good in a good location. But by every traditional finance or real estate person's experience, and they've told me, we're in the worst place you could ever be. 3rd is service. There is no service at Outpost X. You check in and you arrive in Westworld and there is no one to help you or take care of you. You show up and you've got to figure out how to light a fire in the sauna. Half of people fail and can't figure it out and they get upset. There's just sand cruisers sitting there. You just hop on and drive off. You have to read the instructions. So everything about what you're supposed to do at the hotel, we have not done any of it. And so my theory is that I'm happy we did that, because basically this experiment has happened in an entire vacuum of what you're supposed to do. So what that means is if we take this little experience that we've built that has failed at most things you're supposed to do at the hotel, and then we do some of the things you're supposed to do, it'll work. It'll continue working and we can scale it. And then, would I do Outpost X in its exact form with 100 units? I don't think so. But would I do 100 units of Outpost X, right? 45 minutes from Zion? Absolutely. So that film set thing is really interesting. And every finance and every real estate expert that I talk to, and these are people I really respect. There's one guy who's funded 100 projects and had no defaults. He is batting 100% success rate. And he just said, Travis, this film set thing is the worst idea I've ever heard. No one is going to want to stay in a film set. I forbid you from using the word film set.
That's incredible.
And we did it anyways. And the people have spoken. So the film set thing, I think it works.
Can't argue with results, that's for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Your customers will always tell you when you're right and wrong. Travis, as we start to wrap up here, can you just tell us a little bit about, we talked about the 2 locations coming. We've talked a little bit about your thesis and future growth, but what's next, whether it's out at Outpost X, ChamberStays, or just for you personally? Where do you expect to go over the next 5, 10, 20 years? I know we talked a little bit about legacy for you and your kids prior to jumping on here.
Yep. So we're going to nail the next 2 projects at about 15 units each. Because I feel like you can always get 90% occupancy with 15 units if you do it right. From what I've heard, once you get to 50 to 100, your risk goes up significantly. So we're going to nail these next 2. So we'll have 3 projects at 12 to 15 units that are crushing it. Number 4 is going to be a Viking village, and that's going to be the big one. That's going to be the 30, 40 unit. Now, I don't think I'm ever going to do more than 30, 40 units because I think the uniqueness falls off and you start competing with yourself. And the density gets too high. There's a place in Zion, I won't say the name, but they went from 60 to 100 and they've ruined it with the density. and the founders themselves are the ones saying that. So it has to have that exclusive special magic to it. So after Viking Village, I think that's the scale that we're going to continue. And so we want to get to a deployment level where we can do 2 to 3 of these things a year. The master plan is to do about 20 of these projects over the next 10 years. And that's going to be the portfolio. And the big strategic move is we're going to acquire existing properties that already have the entitlements, access, and utilities. And then we're going to retrofit the Outpost experience to that because it allows us to have speed to revenue. The second big core strategy is that we're going to roll out something called Deploy Pod. So we're going to start building the entire project prefabbed in our own warehouse. Wow. And we're going to do like a military style deployment like you would do in Afghanistan, where everything is self-contained and you don't have all of these multi-month long approval processes with engineering and utilities and all of these things. Now, that's another experiment, and experiments usually don't work. So we'll find out what happens. But that's it. Like in the last 3 or 4 months, I feel like we finally got this laser focused clarity on what we're doing. And that enables us to be able to actually raise money because we have a clear direction on where we're going. 6-7 months ago, it was still absolute ADHD explosion on what we're doing. So this clarity feels nice.
That's amazing.
Love it. And then if somebody does want to reach out either to connect with you, learn more about the projects, where can people go if they're interested?
So I'm the most reachable on Instagram. My handle is @Travis_Chambers, and I check all of those DMs.
Love it. Travis, thank you so much for joining us. This was an incredible conversation. As we said, you've got a really cool brand and some really ambitious, incredible plans coming up. And yeah, can't wait to go out and see one of these in person one day.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Travis.
Great questions. I could talk about this for hours.
I'm feeling inspired. So thank you for that.
Thanks everyone for listening to another great interview on Outdoor Hospitality Weekly. As always, you can catch any of the episodes wherever you get your podcast, and clips and full episodes available all over social. Look forward to seeing you guys back here next week, and we'll talk to you soon.